Hi guys, Ricky Pope here, and this week on the Christian Nerd Tonight podcast, I'm joined by Jess Luttrell of Cosplay For Christ. Jess has been sharing the love of Christ through her cosplay creations for over 9 years. Plus, we'll have scripture and nerdy news as always, and we'll get to all of that right after this.
Hey guys, this is Ashley Cox from Fangirling Over Jesus. At FOJ, we believe in hope and light in the darkness and that you are not alone. We seek to unite and celebrate the intersection of the gospel and our favorite fandoms, and we get to do this through our social media, our podcast devotional, and our cosplay and fashion. And you can find links to all of that through our website, www.fangirlingoverjesus.com, through our social media at Fangirlingoverjesus, wherever you get your podcasts, and on Etsy. See you online.
And lead me on to your kingdom come, surrendering, let your work be done. My life I give for the glory of your Son.
Thank you so much for listening to the Christian Nerd Tonight podcast every week. We are part of the Christian Nerd HQ podcast network, and the network drops new content every weekday. Christian Nerd Unite, you're listening to right now on Mondays, Tatooine Sun on Tuesdays, Fangirling Over Jesus on Wednesdays, the Reverend and the Reprobate on Thursdays, and the Speaking Nerdy podcast every Friday. Go to ChristianNerdHQ.com to follow all the podcasts and check out the Christian Nerd HQ YouTube channel for even more great content. Let's get started with some scripture. Exodus 28, 2-8. Make sacred garments for your brother Aaron to give him dignity and honor. Tell all the skilled workers to whom I have given wisdom in such matters that they are to make garments for Aaron for his consecration, so he may serve as a priest. These are the garments they are to make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a woven tunic, a turban, and a sash. They are to make these sacred garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so they may serve me as priests. Have them use gold and blue, purple and scarlet yarn, and fine linen. Make the ephod of gold and of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and of finely twisted linen. The work of skilled hands. It is to have 2 shoulder pieces attached to 2 of its corners, so it can be fastened. Its skillfully woven waistband is to be like it, of 1 piece, with the ephod, and make with gold and blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and with fine twisted linen. The passage goes on to list more details about how to create these sacred garments, to glorify and for its beauty. A divine instruction to create clothing that signifies purpose and honor. Now, cosplayers, too, craft costumes not just as a hobby, but as an expression of admiration, identity, and artistry, just as the priests wore garments that reflected their dedication to God. Cosplayers wear costumes that reflect their dedication to the characters and stories they love. Christian cosplayers, like our guest today, often find a unique avenue in these costumes to share their faith, seeing parallels between the stories they emulate and the gospel narrative. By embodying characters that resonate with themes of redemption, sacrifice, or hope, they can engage in conversations that can seamlessly bridge their hobby and connection with others with the message of Christ. I pray that this week you'll consider how you can use your hobbies and skills to share who Christ is with others. Now for some nerdy news. New release, The Equalizer 3, tops the weekend's box office with $34 million domestically. Predictions say it could top $42 million over the long Labor Day weekend, making it the second highest Labor Day weekend release ever. Barbie continues to stay in second place with $10 million domestically this weekend. Blue Beetle also keeps its place at third, while Gran Turismo falls from first to fourth. with Oppenheimer rounding out the top 5. With several big upcoming films moving to 2024 release dates, the domestic box office this year is likely to only barely beat out last year's numbers. Users of Charter's Spectrum TV service, the United States' second largest cable TV company with over 15 million users, are not able to watch ESPN as well as 17 other Disney cable channels and 8 major ABC affiliates due to a carriage dispute over contract pricing. This is a huge deal with football season just starting. In a statement from Disney to users, they said, "Consumers should also know that they have many options today and can choose from competing paid TV providers that offer Disney's entire portfolio of networks and programming, as well as TV streaming services that can be accessed by downloading an app or over broadband connection. Although it's not stated here, one of those options is Hulu Plus Live TV, and for those who are interested in sports, ESPN Plus. Which are both majority owned by Disney." Charter, in an investor call, stated that with the amount of cord cutting and difficulty negotiating with companies like Disney, that it may very seriously consider moving on from the pay TV business. This could be a hint at what is to come with cable companies in the future. Disney's Marvel Studios is now shaking up its streaming release schedule. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Loki Season 2 will be the only show that hits this fall, debuting on Disney Plus on October 6th, as previously announced. The second season of the animated series What If will debut around Christmas Day, even though it was originally slated for much earlier this year. Echo, a spinoff from last year's Hawkeye, was originally announced for November 29th, but has now shifted to January 2024. X-Men 97, the animated series, was originally planned for the fall of 2023 debut, but now will premiere in early 2024. And Agatha, the WandaVision spinoff, starring Kathryn Hahn, was originally announced for winter 2023 release and has been pushed back to early fall of 2024 and received a name change from Agatha Coven of Chaos to Agatha Darkhold Diaries. In my interview this week, I talk with Christian cosplayer Jess Luttrell of Cosplay For Christ. Jess has been going to conventions and leading crafting and cosplay creation groups for the past several years and using her skills at costume making to share the love of Christ. Now, let's get right into our interview. Jess Luttrell, it is so great to have you on the Christian Nerd Unite podcast today.
Thank you, Ricky. It's nice to be here. It's an honor.
Well, tell us a little bit about who you are and why I kind of invited you on the show.
I don't know why you invited me on the show. I'm kidding. I do cosplay and I'm a Christian, and that's kind of what I put out in the public. My Instagram is Cosplay For Christ, so people are pretty clear what I am, what I do. So I don't like confusion. So I try to be upfront right off the bat, but I think you asked me on because you want to talk about cosplay and Christians in the cosplay world, and that we're both nerds and Christians, and there's a camaraderie there that we hold. So talk about that. Who am I?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm married. I have 3 girls. I've been married 19 years, which don't do the math. But cosplay world is interesting because people treat older cosplayers differently, or there's a little something there. It's starting to change. But I'm 42 years old, so people we're like, wait, what? I'm like, yes, it's called makeup. It's amazing. But, and maybe some genetics. I don't know. I do have strong Italian in me. So my mom looks great for her age too. So that sounded really, sorry. I'm not that great.
No,
I need makeup. Sorry.
That's
I'm like,
brilliant.
oh, I'm so humble right now. That's so good. Oh, Lord.
Uh,
Anyway.
well, okay. So since you made that comment and brought that up, let me ask a little bit about that because I'm interested. I have some basic things I want to talk about, but I'm curious about this idea that you just threw out there,
Yep.
saying that um, people treat older cosplayers differently. What do you mean by that? Do you mean like people that are not in the cosplay world treat
Yes.
older cosplayers
Yes.
different, or
Yes.
cosplayers treat
No.
older cosplayers different?
I
Okay.
find that the cosplay community is very accepting of most things and most people, and like true people who cosplay for the love of cosplay, which is
Mhm.
why I love this community so much. They are really like, whatever you want to do, whatever skill level you're at, go for
Mhm.
it, do it. We're going to support you. And that's the majority of what I see in the actual cosplay community. It's outside the cosplay community that when people don't understand or don't get it, sometimes they'll be like, you're what? What do you do? Like, and to explain, I always have to say when I introduce what I do to people is like, do you know what cosplay is? And if they don't know, then it's a learning opportunity. If they do know, then they just look at me weird. But until I show them my stuff, and then they're like, "That's you." I'm like, "Yes, I know I don't look like this every day, but yes, that is me." You made that? Yes, I did. So then it changes, but it's the randos on the internet that have their own opinions on what a cosplayer should be or what people should look like, and a woman too. There's a lot of misconceptions of like, well, if you're older, then you have to be this certain thing. But I mean, people have their opinions, and it's fine. I don't care.
Girls can be nerds too. It's
Girls
okay.
can be nerds too. It's okay. And if we don't know all the nerdy things, it's okay too. Like, we know what we know, and we'll continue to learn as everyone else does. So
Exactly.
thank
I
you.
don't know at all. My speaking of girls, I have two of my own.
Oh, how old are they?
I only have girls as well.
Me too. Yep.
Mine are both grown and are both in college now. Well, actually,
Okay.
one just finished college, one is in the middle of college. So,
That's
but
awesome.
my oldest is still learning how nerdy her dad is or isn't. She texted me last night and asked me, "Do you know Klingon?" No, I do not. I am a nerd, but I do not know Klingon.
I know what it is. I
I'm not
cannot
that
speak
guy.
it. I'm not there. I'm like, are you like I know a lot about a lot of things, but it's not real deep,
Yeah,
unless it's like
that's kind of.
the
I'm a
things that
very
you
broad
really,
nerd.
yes,
I'm a very
I'm
broad
there.
nerd, except for a very few select
Yes.
subjects.
Okay, what's your select subjects? You gotta tell me.
Well, okay, so since we're talking about it, one of my absolute favorite shows of all time is Robotech, which is
Mhm.
not a super well known.
I don't know it.
Yeah, it hit the United States in the mid '80s, and there's like, I don't know, 60 or 70 episodes, and it's actually 3 different animes that they brought over and made into one big project, and it's a long, hairy
Okay.
discussion, but I absolutely love Robotech. It's great. You should
Okay, so
definitely
I'll have
check
to
it
check
out.
it out.
It's a little
Okay.
harder to find, just because it keeps getting sold, and the company that owns it is called Harmony Gold, and they don't like letting other people play with their toys.
Their stuff. Like, don't play with my things.
Back then, it wasn't even called anime. It was like back when it was still called Japanimation.
I was like, Japanimation. I know that. Like, anime came out in
Yeah.
the last 20 years, start really
Yeah.
ramping
So-
up.
But so that's one of my subjects, and I'm pretty deep into some Star Wars lore, but I'm not big into the extended stuff. So like the novels and stuff. But,
Yeah. I love Star Wars, but I have not seen all of Clone Wars, and so people lose their minds over that. But I'm like, I have small children. I only have so much time in the day, and I will really like playing my video games too. So
yeah, there. At
there's
some point
obligations.
there is a life to live.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's talk a little bit about cosplay. And one of the things I wanted to focus on with you, because actually, just couple of weeks ago, based on when this will come out, I had another cosplayer. Now,
Batman?
yeah, he's a man.
No, Batman.
Oh yeah,
What's his
Batman.
name?
I
Yeah.
had Batman of Oklahoma.
Yes,
Um,
I
yeah,
follow him, and he's great.
yeah, Steven's a great guy.
Yeah.
But yours is a little different. Now, Steven basically buys all of his own costumes
Yeah.
and kind of pieces them together from different things. Now, you're more of a create your own costume. So talk to me a little bit about that. What is it like to decide, okay, this is who I want to be. What do I need to do now to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, I like to figure stuff out. I like
Mhm.
puzzles. I like to
Mhm.
find the answer to the problem. And I love crafting. I love making things. And I like learning about how to make things, new techniques and stuff. So um, I will just YouTube something. If something's in my head and I'm like, I want to know how to do this, I will just figure it out, and I will fail and fail and fail and then get it. And so, but that process is really fun for me to go through. So my first cosplay was Commander Shepard from Mass Effect video game. If you're familiar with, it's a trilogy.
Yep.
I was like, where's this behind me? That, right there. I was like, okay, sorry, mirror. It's like opposite of what I'm seeing on my screen. But my friend actually helped me. I'd never done foam armor. I'd never done any. I've actually at that point had not made any kind of just sewing outfits. I'd not sewn. I'd made quilts, and that's about it. So like my skill set was very low. And this is back in 2013, 2014. And she's in the film industry and knows, and she's like great and knows all the things. And so she helped me make a pattern based on research. And so we just walked through it. So for me, that was a cool learning experience on how she did it and her process. And then it opened it up to like other things on how I can make stuff. So my next costume was Toothiana from Rise of the Guardians. And, and actually this turquoise, sorry, right there, that's a baby tooth. You can kind of see that costume back there. But so that was a full bodysuit that I sewed. And then there was a whole expansive tail feather thing that I didn't know how to do. And so I figured out, you research, you blog, you figure out different techniques that can work. And then you kind of mishmash what works and what doesn't. My wing harness was like two little cross stir sticks from paint stir sticks, like an old bra, and some like tubes that you stick wires in. That's a hanger, like a hanger tube. Like those, I mean, it was because you can do things, but it costs a lot of money if you. The money builds up very quickly, and so you need to. I don't know. I always felt like I had a little budget, and I tried to stick within that budget and try to work with what I had in the house or at the thrift stores or wherever I can find it, kind of thing. And so it was just really fun it's fun to figure it out for me. And so crafting is something that like it's self-taught. And so I just keep building on it. Like when I did Maz Kanata from Star Wars, I had never made a latex mask before or prosthetics. I've never done any of that. But I taught myself and figured out, did a clay model of her face. So I'm artistic, so I can do clay, or figured out I could. And so I made, the clay model of her face, and then I casted it, and and it worked, and it fit my face, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then her goggles were it was very, I used magnets on a hat I made with some earphones, and I glued like two little screws with magnets on the inside, so that the magnets that you buy from Home Depot that have a little hole in it, it's like a 25-pound magnet, you just stick them on top of the thing, and so they could articulate up and down and stay on my face, but I could pop them off if I needed to. So, but that was like literally 6 tries of failing before I figured out the actual like movement and making it work. But when I did it, it was so exciting. I was like, oh, I did it. And I like document how I did it and how I failed along the way. And the process is so fun for me. So I get a lot of joy of the completed project, knowing all the stuff that I did to get to that end point, so.
Very cool. Well, kind of with that in mind, what has been maybe the most difficult project that you have tried to take on?
It's the one I'm still doing and I'm scared to start. If we let's see, completed. Let's go with
Let's do
completed first.
completed. Let's go with completed
So,
first.
Completed first, I would say probably because of the failing on and off would be Maz Kanata, because that was a
Okay.
completely different, the latex, the headpiece, the applying it, knowing when it's too hot to wear latex and it all melts off your face versus, and then the whole outfit I sewed together, just figuring all that out. It took a long time for me to perfect that. And I think it turned out, I'm really proud of it. So that was a good, yay. The one that I'm someday, it's on my list, is Roz from Monsters, Inc., the big slug lady.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Wazowski, you didn't file your ports. I want to do that lady. And I've been watching Adam Savage, trying to figure out how he does like those big, whatever costumes, but he has like an endless budget and I do not. So it's like,
Yes,
I'm
he
trying
does.
in my mind. I'm like, okay, is it like a hoop skirt thing? Cause I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. So I'm a little scared to dive in. So right now I'm working on Ahsoka and the armor from The Mandalorian, because I know those and I understand how to do those. But we just moved into this house, and so we've been in transition, and I'm like finally set up everything. I'm like, okay, I think I can start now. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, absolutely. So I was gonna say, it looks like from looking at some of your stuff, it looks like you do some 3D printing as well. Is that something you do yourself, or do you have
Yes.
people that help you with that? Or
I wish people would help me with it. So my husband, for I think our 15th or 16th anniversary, bought me this Ender 5 Creality 3D printer.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. But I let it sit in the box for like a year before I actually opened it. And so I opened it, put it together, and it's like learning with a fire hose. Like just learning 3D printing is, my brain. I understand some tech stuff, but a lot of it's on the creative side. So I'm a weird mix of the two. And I put it together and I figured it out, and it was great. And that's what I made. My first prints were the Cardoon armor pieces. So that's all my first print I did with 3D printing. And her little pistol, it all turned out great and it was fun, except when it failed, and then it wasn't fun, but because you spend 10 hours waiting for this thing to do it, and then it fails in the 11th hour. You're like, no, but it's okay. Learning process.
Spirals out of control.
I know.
Yes.
Well, the heat extruder failed, and I tried to fix it, and I failed, and then I was going on the blogs trying to figure out how to fix it, and they're like, oh, you just need to replace the motherboard. I'm like, replace them? Oh, okay, I just need to do that. Sure. And it's sitting broken right now. And I told my husband, like, I'm just going to buy a new one. And he's like, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, there's a sale on Amazon. I don't even know. It's not Creality. I'm just going to buy it because it's like under $300. And he's like, okay. And so it's sitting in a box upstairs that I will eventually fix it, maybe someday, but it's a little daunting. It's like my brain checks out when I look at it. I'm like, I can't right now. Like, there's too much. So
I'm with you there.
I've dabbled, and I would love someone who knows much more about it to teach me more, but I'm just not there yet. So it's okay. I'm going to let it lie and get to it later and move on.
So you mentioned Roz. Other than Roz, what is another project, another costume that you really want to do someday, but you just haven't had the time or don't know that you have the skills? What's that big project that you're like, I really want to pull this one off?
So I have so how I pick characters is based on like my love for that genre that they're in. Commander Shepard was my first one because that was the character I wanted to be Like, I just wanted to be Commander Shepard. She is so awesome in every way that I played her on the video game. And so when I pick characters, I pick these usually very strong women type or quirky. I like quirky. Most of them tend to be serious warrior types. I'm the opposite of that. But Wonder Woman is like bucket list of things I would love to make. I loved Wonder Woman from before I knew what comics were. Like, Wonder Woman was the first female superhero that I really was like, this is an awesome chick. Like, I want to be like her. And even her mom, Hippolyta, and her aunt, you know, like I that whole universe is great. I don't know what they're doing with it in the movies lately and the comics lately. I don't know if I agree with where they're going in that direction, but the original, like, just what she embodied, kind of like Captain America, like what they embody, I love. So Wonder Woman is like right up there. It's like a dream cosplay for me, even though it's funny because I feel like I could make her, but I'm holding her off just a little bit. And then the other one would probably be Rogue from X-Men. I love Rogue. little southern girl, you know, with all the powers, you know, I love her. I watched the 90s comics of X-Men growing up, and Rogue was my absolute favorite character in the X-Men world. Like, I always thought she was cool. She had the cool streak, and like my gray is coming in like Rogue. So I'm like, hey, I could actually like, you know, I could be Rogue. So she's on my bucket list of someday I'll do it, but not yet. So
very cool. Well, where you mentioned, you know, thrift stores, and you mentioned, you know, sewing things from scratch.
Yeah.
Where do you get most of your materials for your costumes? Are you buying bulk material and making it from scratch, or are you know, starting with something and going from there?
So I usually just start with the character. Like, I can't imagine things until I pick the character. And then once I pick the character, I start to break down what the elements of the costume is. So if there's a lot of sewing, it's like I go on reconnaissance. And so I have to go and research. And I find, you know, I'll go on the blogs. If it's Star Wars, I'll usually go on the Rebel Legion and see what people have used that gets them, you know, certified for the 501st or whatever the character is. And I'll see what people have used before. And usually that's a great resource for Star Wars stuff because they are, you know, doing screen accuracy. And not everyone can do you don't have to do screen accuracy to be a cosplayer. Like, you can buy it from the Halloween store and rock it, and it's great. My own personal whatevers is that I get very type A, and I just get into the detail. And so I enjoy the detail, and I enjoy figuring out the hard things, like we said before. Yeah. So like recently I just did Princess Leia. And so Princess Leia has a leather belt, the senatorial gown. So the classic white with the hood and the belt. So I did that recently, and that was really fun. I just went to Hobby Lobby. Like, I'll go to the stores. Walmart's great. I'll go find discount fabric because fabric's expensive. So if you can find $1, $2, $3 a yard, that's a great deal. So I will go and search for stuff on clearance. And I'm usually like, I'll go look. And if I see something that could work for a character I have in mind that I might do later, like, I'll buy the fabric. So for instance, at Hobby Lobby, they had a gold. It was solid gold. It was kind of a structured fabric. I don't even know what it would. Okay. I could sew it, but it's structured. And it was a whole roll of it for $1 a yard. So I think I got it for $3 or $4 for this tube. Well, in my mind, I'm like, I can make the Wonder Woman gold, like that. In 1982, they had the, what was her name? Wisteria? What's the, Linda Carter played the original. It's like the gold suit that the armor that she wore. I'm not thinking of it right now, but in my mind, I'm like, I could make that out of that. So I bought it. I'm like, it's $4. If I don't make it, I can make some cool, like, gold looking embellishment on something else. So I'll buy stuff if it's a good deal just because, and I might have a character for it. But then other times, if I'm at the thrift store, if I see something that matches kind of similarly to what I'm looking for. It's sometimes cheaper just to buy it at the thrift store and modify it for me than to start completely from scratch. Time is also part of the equation that goes into what I do. So, for instance, I made a River Song Doctor Who character. There's a Day of the Moon. It's kind of her classic, like hunter green with the belt, and she has like a holster. And I found this dress that was the same color. It was just a long tunic dress that went down to my feet, and it was like a linen fabric. And I just modified it, added more fabric to it that I got from Walmart for $1 a yard, and made the skirt and added drawstrings and zippers and pockets, and it was great. And I think I spent under $10 to make the dress. That if you bought screen accurate, it's like $900 a Zeta dress. Wow. Yeah. So I was like, well, this is worth it, it's not 100% screen accurate, but I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It's close enough. Close enough. I'm like, it's close enough. Like, I'm only competing with myself unless I'm going to a cosplay contest, and they don't care as much as what others are doing around you. So like, that's the only time I ever care about if I did it well enough, but I'm my worst critic on all that stuff. But
well, speaking of what others think, what does your family think of your hobby?
My husband supports me, so that's good. He went to my first Comic-Con. We went together as Commander Shepard, and that was the one and done for him. He's like, okay, this is great. Good for you. I'm out. but he's like, he's awesome. He supports me, and he knows that it's not just a hobby for me. It's also a ministry. So that he's partnered with me in that sense. So my girls love it because they get to go with me to Comic-Con, and I make costumes for them. So they're all entrenched in it and love it. And then the rest of my family support me. I think my brother thinks I'm a little weird, but I think he's always thought I was weird. So it's okay. It makes sense. Like, that figures. Yeah, I could see that. So, and growing up, I was in the theater world. College, I did theatrical lighting design. So like, I've been in this realm, but just not in this capacity until 2014. So they're very supportive. Honestly, they're a lot of times they're like, "Can we borrow a costume for our kids' thing?" I'm like, "Yes, you can." So I've freely loan out my stuff all the time. So they benefit from it too.
Well, since you mentioned the ministry side, let's kind of go there.
Sure.
So how do you make this, ministry oriented? What's, why did you decide that? And kind of how do you make it that? And why do you think it's important?
Well, I would say, to go back to when it started as a hobby. This was just something I enjoyed doing. It's a creative outlet for me. I had just had my second baby, and I was home. I wasn't working at the time. And so this was just something that I was able to just be creative with and have as something I could do that I was proud of, that was outside the family structure. And what's funny is like, God, I think he just like takes the skills that you have, and he's like, okay, this is what you're passionate about. Okay, let's do it. But for me, and like, I feel like God like takes our dreams, and I mean, a lot of times if you're focused on Christ, what we desire will be what he desires. And that alignment kind of just slowly gets together, as you grow in Christ. But so cosplay for me was just fun and a hobby. And then our church was doing small groups, and I had just recently gone back on staff at my church. And it's recommendatory that you leave a small group. And yeah, so it's like, yes, we recommend it, but it's not mandatory, but it's recommendatory. So you should do it if you want to, but you should, I love my old church. I love them. I miss them. I miss them. I miss Texas. But so it started as a crafting group, a small group of crafting. That way I could work on my Commander Shepard costume with my friend Laura, and then still fulfill the recommendatory. I have a small group. And so that's how it actually started. And this was, again, not ministry in my mind related. It was just a method to craft and get credit for it, through the church. Yeah. And so I just remember one time, so it was a crafting group is what it was called. And then suddenly, like, I remember I was backstage at church and I was having like a conversation with God, and like this Cosplay for Christ came into my mind, and it was not my thought. I'd never heard of that before. Turns out there's another Cosplay for Christ in California who are awesome. I love them. But I had not met them yet. And so that's when I was like, oh, Cosplay for Christ, this could be actually a thing. And so that's when it started. I had a co-leader who helped me. And at first it was just a small group. It was just a way of being a small group and gathering Christian nerds together to make stuff. And then as it grew, 2018 was probably the pivoting point for the shift of it. Like, this is ministry. And that's when my family was on vacation, and we felt, I was in my quiet time, and I really felt God put in my heart, it's time to do a booth at Comic-Con. And I was like terrified. I was like, what? And I go tell Brady, I'm like, Brady, I feel like God's telling me this. And he's like, well, if God's telling you it, you should do it. I'm like, okay. And so I call my friend Laura, and I was like, Laura, I can't do this by myself. I think I need help. And so she's like, I've been waiting. It's time. And so she's like, I've been waiting for you to get to this point. So here we are. And so we formed this, we prayed about it. We felt peace about it. And so 2018, we went to Wizard World Austin and had a booth. And it was probably the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was a moment where I was like, just by being there, Christians were hiding in Comic-Con, came out of hiding, and people who didn't understand, like, have a misconception of who Christ is and the love of Christ, or maybe had a hurt somewhere or a misconception, they were able to talk with us and kind of, I felt like we were a bridge between the two worlds of Christianity, Jesus, and nerd culture coming together. And it was a really cool moment where we got to just love on people and show Christ to people, period. And we met a ton of people through that just one booth, and like lifelong friends that we created. And so the group started like becoming okay, this is what we're doing. We're going to go out and our mission is Comic-Con. Our mission is to go show Christ's love in Comic-Con, not outside with bullhorns yelling that people are going to hell. It's inside, cultivating relationships with people, showing them, hey, we're skilled. We are at the same level with you guys in the sense of creativity and what we can do. And because of that, and because we were loving to them, it's like we were accepted by the groups to, like, I mean, we had a group of psychics who we prayed that no one would go to their booth. We just did. And at the end of Comic-Con, they'd always come by. We'd always say hi. We'd always be nice to them. And one lady actually came by, and she's like, yeah, it's just no one's coming to the booth. I'm like, Jesus. But then she's like, but then the conversation shifted to us ending up praying for her daughter. And so like, it was just such a cool God moment where I'm like, thank you, God, for allowing us to be here and opening up this opportunity for her to hear your word and just like experience you just for a brief moment, so that seed was planted. And I don't know what's going to happen with her, but like in that moment, we were able to be Christ to her. And that's very humbling as a very insecure person that I am. I'm very like, oh, I don't want to mess up. I don't want people to think I'm bad or whatever, but God gives you boldness. And I felt like God really gave us an opportunity to represent him well in that Comic-Con. And so the next year we did it again. And then the next year was COVID. And then the next year I moved. And so everything shifted. Everything shifted. It was so crazy. I'm like, God, okay, what are you doing? We're just going with it, going with the flow. It's great. And but then it was funny, Ricky, because like then my focus, I'm like, I don't feel released from cosplay. I feel like I'm supposed to still do it. But I feel like it's shifting to a different way to minister. And so last year I started a podcast, and the podcast is the focus is like Christians who are cosplayers, for me to help like disciple. I feel like there's a lack of discipleship in the Christian culture, in the Christian world, and the nerd culture, especially. Although I tell you what, between you and I see a bunch of other people who are like taking up the mantle to start speaking truth in the nerd culture about Christ. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. I'm literally seeing people around the country doing it. I'm like, yes, yes, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like, it just gets me so excited because I'm like, people are going to die for the lack of knowledge. And when you're not fed, when you're in a culture that is completely counter to the Christian Bible, to Jesus, to like everything about the world is opposite of Christ. And so to go into these areas where people are like, I'm a Christian, but I'm surrounded by nothing that is Christ or Christian, to have a voice or to have a reminder to like encourage you in it, to keep going, to don't get tired of doing good, you know, to represent Christ well, all that stuff. Like, I felt like Christian cosplayers specifically, I know there's a larger genre of us in the nerd culture, but like for me and my little spot, my little lane that I'm in is cosplay. And so I'm like, I feel like I just am here to encourage cosplayers who are Christians, who are struggling or just need an extra, like, need someone to just be their buddy, because it's kind of isolating in the cosplay world as a Christian. We're all just kind of like in our little pods here. And thank God for the internet that we're able to reach out, and now podcasting. Like, I mean, really, you were one of the first podcasts I started following. So I was like, oh, what's a podcast? Oh, I mean, I knew what a podcast was, but I never was I never listened. I was like, I can listen and do dishes and craft at the same time. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know, it opened up my world. You learn new things every day. And so like, I feel like God is just using the podcast medium to just really spread his message even further. And especially in our Christian nerd, and not even Christian, just I'm grateful when people who are not even Christians listen, because you know, who knows how God's going to use what we say. You know, we don't know the fruit that will come from us being obedient to what God tells us to do. And we might not see it on this side until heaven, you know, but that importance in that, you know, being obedient to what God tells you to do and doing it and standing firm in what he tells you to do is like everything right now. So
Absolutely.
Anyway, I don't know if that answers all the questions, but that's kind of where I'm at with, I mean, Ricky, the podcast, I didn't want to do it. I'm like, I don't want to do this. People don't want to hear me. Like, I have nothing to say that is relevant or important to anybody, but it was like, I don't know if you've ever experienced like that pressing, like you need to do it. And it's the Holy Spirit. And like, it's like, no, you got to do it. And if we don't do it, God will use someone else to do it. You know, his word does not return to him void. He will accomplish what he has set forth, you know? And so it's like, okay, God loves the cosplay world. God loves the nerds, the nerd culture. He loves these people and he loves us so much. And I'm like, he's the way though. He's the truth. He's the light. He's John 14:6. He is the thing that people are trying to fill that void with. And we as Christians are commissioned to tell people about it and represent him well, to be ambassadors. And so that's what I feel like we're doing. And I feel partnered with you, Ricky, and all these other awesome people I'm meeting in our world that love God and love nerd stuff. And it's exciting to you know, to be a part of it. Honestly, it's kind of crazy. I'm like, who am I? I'm just Jess. It's Jess. That's all I am. But anyway.
Nice. Well, I appreciate your heart. I appreciate what you're doing. So if somebody listening out there is thinking about, you know, getting into cosplay, what would you tell them? Like, how would you encourage them? What would you tell them? Like, you know, here's how you can start.
Yes. I would say if you're interested in cosplay, find a character you love, because how you make the costume does not matter. Like how you assemble, if you're a crazy seamstress or you bought it on eBay. It doesn't matter. If you don't love that character, it's not as fun. And part of cosplay is having fun. I know we like to be all serious and stuff, but it's fun. Like dressing up in costume and pretending to be a character is fun. And so if you don't pick a character that you love, then what are we doing? What are we doing? Like it's not worth it. But if you pick someone you love, and when you put on that costume, man, it's just so enjoyable. So I would say pick some character you love. And it doesn't have to be what everyone else loves. What you love is important. I don't think a million people picked Maz Kanata because no one picks Maz. Or Dr. Crunklehorn from Meet the Robinsons. No one picks her, but she is so cool, So
I love that movie, by the way.
It's so underrated. Like I'm not.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's so quirky and I laugh watching it. It's so fun. And that character is just a hoot. So pick something you love. And then depending on your skill level, YouTube is such a wonderful thing. If you want to make something, YouTube, everyone has already done it. Mm-hmm. Someone has already done it. Blog, YouTube, go do your research and then figure out where you want to start, what skill level you're at. If you just want to buy something and wear it, go for it. Do it. The minute you put on that costume, it's worth whatever money you spent. And there's people you can buy really cheap Walmart, or you can buy someone commissioned it for you and you spend $1,000. It doesn't matter. It's what you really feel like you want to do and what you're comfortable with. And for me, I have to be a certain way because it's my own thing. It's not because I'm trying to impress people. It's because I have my own internal issues with myself about being persnickety about things. So that's what I would say. Pick something you love and then go research to what skill level you're at. And then you just grow. As you get into it, you will start growing. If you ever see these glow ups of people are like, here's where I started, here I am now. Everyone grows, everyone improves. Like you just have to want to do it. So, and how much energy and time do you want to put into it? And then do it. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, for those who are listening or watching, how can they keep up with you? How can they find you and kind of see what you're doing, listen to your podcast, such?
Sure. So I'm very active on Instagram. Cosplay, the number 4 Christ is my handle. I have cosplayforchrist.com. If you want to go on the website, there's some devotionals out there, some tutorials on how I made certain things. I need to be better at updating the website. And then my podcast is, again, Cosplay for Christ podcast with the number 4. And it's on any streaming services, any podcast, Apple, Spotify. I don't know. I clicked a bunch of buttons to say, put me on it. So if you search Cosplay for Christ and you'll see like kind of a spacey and purpley logo with white, that's me. So I don't think there's any other Cosplay for Christ podcasts out there right now. So, and if there are, join me. Let's join forces. So that's how you can find me. My email is cosplayforchrist@gmail.com or info@cosplayforchrist.com. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Well, and I'll put some links down in the show notes below so that people can just click to get there really quick. Jess, it has been a joy having you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ricky, for having me. It's an honor. You're awesome. Keep doing what you're doing and don't stop. Okay? You got to keep on.
Definitely.
Yes.
It was great connecting with Jess this week. If you want to check out her podcast or learn more about making costumes or just keep up with what she's doing, make sure you check down at the links in the show notes below. Well, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, just click all those links, whatever they are down there. That way you can keep up with us whenever we put out new content. You can find all of our social links and links to our YouTube channel and our online store at ChristianNerdsUnite.com. If you enjoyed the show and want to help even more, consider becoming a supporter on Patreon. All of our Patreon levels have great benefits and make a huge difference in the ministry we're able to do. Supporters will also get to hear exclusive stories of believers we're serving around the world through our ministry partners. To check it out or partner with us, go to patreon.com/ChristianNerdsUnite or ChristianNerdUnite.com and click support in the menu. And don't forget to check out ChristianNerdHQ.com for more great podcasts. Before you go, I do want to leave you with this blessing from Romans 15. May the God who gives endurance and encouragement give you the same attitude of mind toward each other that Christ Jesus had, so that with one mind and one voice you may glorify the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. We'll see you next week. Blessings.
Hey.